Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, Bad Baby, accompanied by my co-host, Alex Lujan. And he can't talk tonight because he broke his computers. And tonight we have with us Samuel Hoffman. And we were going to be starting at the beginning, eh, Samuel?
We're going to give it a shot anyway, yeah.
And
The beginning, boy, that was a long, long time ago. No,
yeah, way
yeah,
back when Wooba Gooba was breaking the boulders.
yeah. Or if you go by current physics terms, the Big Bang and all of that. No, we're not. I'm not going that far back. No, beginning of the crossing of the transition of the Nibiru group of planets. Yes, that
Okay,
is.
and just to give everybody a heads up, Samuel's having some health issues, and he might have a problem with his throat a little bit tonight. And and also, I want you to pray for Alex because he's having a little problem with his stomach cancer, and it's been a battle for everybody out here with their health. So just hang with us, and maybe we can all get a miracle from all the way around the planet. That would be awesome, eh, Samuel?
Oh, we're having solar flares, so that might be. When we had just a coronal hole connection as of yesterday evening and stuff, and midday. So yeah, we've got some electrical connections going on. So we just turn all of that into good stuff instead of the negative, like certain. Oh God, I will be so happy when the voting is over.
Me
I'll
too.
even settle. I'll settle for a couple of Christmas commercials already. I mean, because God, we got nailed with that. The next day after Halloween, of course, I saw a Christmas commercial on TV. It's like, oh no, here we go. But
Now, Alex is saying he got blocked. I do not know how he got blocked. Um,
uh,
I don't
dial in
think
again.
view
Hang up
only
and
audio connected. Um, no, I
dial
don't see
again.
how. I don't have you blocked, so I don't see why you are. Oh, did he call back? I don't
I don't
know.
know.
Anyways, we are also being saying someone, guest 7 is saying hello from Yellowstone. Well, welcome. And I think I know who that is. And we want to welcome you guys all to the call tonight. We're going to have a great show. Um, so since we're going to go from the beginning, let's kind of there might be some people out there that are new to what's going on with the planet. So why don't you
That's
kind
the
of
thing. That's
explain
kind of
what's
where I
going
wanted to start. Because brought up this topic to my mind the other day because I was talking to some people in Missoula here up in Montana, and I asked them generally, well, have you heard about Nibiru? And they of course look at you and go, what? And I said, you don't know about the Nibiru system? And they go, no. And I go, Planet X? And they go, oh. And then they nod and start looking at the ground. And your average Joe person on the street or average Joe Facebook, I would even imagine, has no real knowledge that this is going on. And to this point, it still amazes the heck out of me because I've been talking about the planets being within close proximity here to us visibly for 8 years, and screaming it as loud as we dare and as loud as they've allowed us to on my 13th computer, etc. And I've gone through numerous routers and all sorts of electrical issues and computer. And anyway, and what I wanted to talk about was the process of what has happened, and a lot of people have really missed out on a huge amount of information that's been going on, and you get a lot of the new folks on line nowadays, and they'll join Montana Skywatcher 2, which is where we let most of the new folks in, and then the closed off site is Montana Skywatcher, and I put the older members in there who know what they're talking about. Anyway, and I get new folks on, and they act like this is just now arriving. Oh, Nibiru is the red planet, and it's just the 10th planet, or Planet X, and the winged, and they're all running on this premise that it's just now occurring, and that's not the case in the slightest. It's just amazing that there's this huge information disconnect on what has been occurring, and amongst even a whole bunch of Nibiru / such and such sites all over Facebook. And part of what has really brought this to topic of mind for me, is how frustrating it is to watch these people share this disinformation and, to use our dear Capital's terms, fake news. I mean, we are seeing so much fake information out there that I spend 3/4 of my time wading through and retrying to straighten out the new folks and the folks that have barely even heard anything about it, and even a handful of people that have been around for a very long time. And they're very, very confused by all this disinformation. And it's just huge. We got to get spread the proper information and not spread the internet hype and galore and fear stuff. And if it's scary, don't pay any attention to it. If it's logical and it fits, well, then it's true. And if it's complicated and spooky, well, then it's a lie, because that's what they want you to do, is be fearful. And we've got to stop that, and stick to the facts that have been time proven. Now, a lot of people who don't know me or who barely do know, spinning my own tongue here, people who barely do know me should know that I run on time-proven materials for Montana Skywatcher. I'm not talking about conjecture and hype, and I don't discuss a lot of alien spaceships, and we don't talk about chemtrails. Number one, that gets our site flagged because it's one of the list words that gets you looked up. And I completely avoid geoengineering because people are always focusing on what man is doing, and they're not paying attention to what the planets are doing. And so they're so easy to attribute what they're visually seeing on all of the comparative scientific reports from all the members. Is they're thinking, oh, it's chemtrails. And I had the famous swear word, in my opinion, sundogs chemtrails today. And I just laughed, and of course, and I removed that member from the site immediately, because I'm not even going to go there with some of these new folks, because I'm not going to spend 3 months trying to teach them that what they're seeing has nothing to do with man spraying out of aircraft. And then there's the people that are the sun simulator fans, and that comes from the little trinity of boys who are out just making money off of people and talking hype, and they know who they are, and they know that I'm talking about them, so I don't have to mention them. It's so darn frustrating, because we at Montana Skywatcher, we've watched this since day one. I started the group because I knew the planets were coming. I've known about them for over 38 years. I've known about the larger planet count in the binary solar system, meaning 2 suns. We have to have 2 suns. And Imru is the massive red planet that everybody thinks is the Nibiru thing, and we could also call it Hercules. But see, there's so many cross-references and unknowings and superstitions and Old Testaments from old documents and religious material that cross-reference, and everybody's going, Nemesis, the Destroyer, and these cross names, and we avoided this years ago by actually sticking to the Pleiadian listings of names. And people question me all the time, where do you get these names from? So, well, it came from a 2009 video that was a Pleiadian message that was soon booted out of the United States, and it matched my information that I had received many years earlier, and so we stuck with it until proven. For the first period of time, we were calling it the Big Blue Planet and the Big Blue Green Planet, and that was Nibiru. And then Saru is a greenish blue because it has less deep oceans. And then we saw in, well, I'll get back to the point we talked about at the beginning. They originally started coming up from underneath us. And at Montana Skywatcher, we were watching from Newmeyer Station for the longest period of time in the early years, 2009 and 2010, and we started seeing them come in as dark shadows. And then it would literally cross the sun in small edges and different angles and stuff at times. And then over time, we all started discussing the fact that, that it was light down there during the day when it was not supposed to be. And, because the Antarctic is supposed to be pitch black most of the time at such and such time of the year. Anyway, that was going on for a period of 5 years or so, where all of a sudden there was daytime going down there, and the cycle was completely broken, followed by an appearance of a second larger sun up from the subhorizontal view, even of Newmeyer Station. Now, everybody's got to remember we're on a ball, so there's all these different out views, and so you have to really, spin your head in the right direction to be understanding that we view out at a graduated 37% view. So it's kind of like looking through a fishbowl and out. It's a little weird, and it's a little murky and odd, but over time, if you get good at this, you'll start noticing the planets. But anyway, going back to it, what they did was they arrived in a small spiral below us, and then they got closer and in a slightly bigger spiral, and then come up in a bigger spiral, and this was over the first 3 years or so, from 2009, 2010, 2011, and then Nibiru and the others were started going visually over us at the height of their ovular arc at the end of the year. And that's hard to describe because they don't follow the same spiral path that we do. They did a sub-horizontal to post-horizontal orbit where we could view them in certain spiral one after the others. And it was really hard at first because we didn't have the cloud patterns and we didn't understand what was going on a lot, but we did have a lot of the captures. And so we were, calling them by their colors, as I said before. And then around 2011, Uri came on the scene because Uri got close enough. It was this big, bright ball. And then we started, and then everybody started going, oh, it's the second sun. And the second sun had already arrived and joined up to behind our smaller Sol as of 2012. And by this time, Nibiru had crossed over from the left view of the sun in the eastern, or in the sunset position. It's the same sun planetary settings pretty much, depending on where they are. And in the settings, we noticed that it went from Nibiru, the larger planet, had gone from the left over the top of the sun for a period of a few months, and then far off to the right, and then continued whereas Saru came in behind. And then she was in the eastern sky to the left. And then we started noticing that the sun started rising in the north-northeast around 2010, 2011, 2012, and then the wobbling, changing star patterns occurred and stuff like this. And I have a video I regularly post. It's Final Countdown, and it's made by this one person, and I should actually try and contact them and thank them for the use of this video because it's a member add-on. Somebody put their own stuff in on it, and it's phenomenal captures of when the second sun and our sun started getting closer and closer to each other and joining. And then over the years, we've watched the approach of the other planets, and after they did their third or fourth spiral from underneath us, they came visually above the horizon, like up here. I refer a lot of this from my point of view because I'm up here in Montana, and so I'm a little higher on the ball than a lot of people who are down south or in Brazil or England or or even South Africa, et cetera. Or Australia. They have a different view than we do, and it took for years to try and figure out what we were looking and how it was opposite slightly, and sometimes it wasn't, et cetera. But anyway, over the years, because of the member reports, we've gathered thousands and thousands of pictures of these planets as they got bigger and bigger and bigger, and some of them were these tiny little dots, and we kept arguing, is that lens flare? And then, we had people put their hands in front of the lenses on live vids and check for lens flares, and then we spent a bunch of time trying to teach everyone not to film through glass, because if you get doubling, then your sighting is just, it voids credibility instantly. So please don't film through glass if you're going to send something in. And to continue, we then in 2013, 2014 started visually seeing Isatum and Nepesity, which are much smaller planets than Uri and Atu. And when Atu got here, which was just big enough to say, oh, okay, it's a gas giant, and then we saw visual evidence of it, and the fact it was purple, it matched the information we had with the Pleiadian video that we acquired in 2008, 2009. And by that time, we'd seen enough of the planets in many different versions of close pass to beyond pass that we could do a visual comparison to the colors that were displayed in the video, although it's not entirely accurate. But we did have the opportunity to attribute the names to these planets, especially when the purple one that they on the video called Atu matches exactly what we've been calling Atu for the longest time. Now, we've had thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures of Atu. It's been the most photographed of all the planets because it's a middle-sized purple, and you don't see purple skies in a big circle and miss that easily. It's a big purple semi-angled striped planet, and it has a big white moon around it as well. And of course, we've had, tens of thousands of pictures of this over the last 8 years.
Now,
And then,
Samuel, you say
yes,
this planet has a white moon. People are contacting me and saying that they're seeing more than one moon, Why do
Hmm.
we have more than one moon? Is that because of this planet's moon?
Well, currently, Attu's moon is huge, and I mean it is 5 times the size of our moon. People have been talking about an illumination in the night sky that's really large, and they've been wondering what it was, an off place, and that is when it illuminates. Excuse me. Attu's moon is currently close crossing to Earth in different sizes as well. So depending on its cycle, we could be looking at a close pass at night where it's smaller. But the lead object from the object cluster group, which is on the left side of the sun generally, and at nighttime it could change. I don't know if it's close passing Earth, but it's huge also, and I believe it's doing a daily close pass. I don't know if it's doing it at night because I'm not out looking at night because we've been up here in Montana. We've been clouded in for a couple of weeks now. We've had rain, which has been great, and we need it. And the more that we get, the better. And we had a really, really hellacious storm go through here today like I've never seen. And we got a great deal of wind and a great deal of rain and lightning. And it looked on the map, and it's pretty suspect. And I'm going to go into some studies on that tonight. But anyway, there's these things are close passing. Now, we've also seen the crop circles recently, where it depicts what I believe is Attu and Attu's moon switching sides on the planet, meaning it's going from the dark side, where we see only the back of it, to the illuminated side, because the crop circle emulates a 37% graduated outlook on the other side of the crop circle pattern, and I'm sure I've given you a copy of that. But I'm reading the crop circles that Attu's moon and Attu are doing a very close pass to Earth and switching sides going beyond us, and that has been matching what we've been seeing from reports for over the last month. So I still feel pretty accurate at that point. And I'd also like to take it, while it's crossing my mind, I'd like to also thank all the Montana Skywatcher 1 and 2 Facebook people out there who are doing such a wonderful job, because of course this would not be working without their participation and scientific contributions of comparative science, which is what we run on, and not falling into a bunch of the negative internet hooey and hype, or even the political stuff, and nobody's really arguing and yelling at each other on my site, and I thank you all for that. You guys are doing a great job. Anyway, back to what we were talking about.
How do you get no one to argue and yell? That's all I
I
see
don't
going on.
tolerate it at all. I tell people,
Oh,
look,
okay,
if
gotcha.
you're going to argue with
Yeah.
somebody, if you don't agree with them, either move on or go play somewhere else. We do this site is for scientific reports. If you can't act professionally an adult here, I'm not going to tolerate your whining or if you put a picture up and I don't agree with it, well then I remove it. But if somebody else doesn't agree with it, well then I remove them. It's just
Gotcha.
plain and simple. Everybody is supposed to. Nobody's supposed to down other people's work. They're making an effort, and there's only one admin, and that's me. And I make the decisions on whether or not it's a credible information, because I've been doing this for 8 years every day, and I've got over 35,000 hours invested in this topic alone. And so I'm not going to be a big meanie about it, but I everybody knows that we're an adult
Right.
internet science site, and we're not here to talk about faces or leprechauns or my favorite one that I when I tease somebody, I put up the pink fluffy unicorn dancing on rainbows video, and there's a 10-hour loop, by the way. And I haven't posted it in years, but when somebody really gets crazy, I go, I'll put up that pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows. It goes over and over and over and over.
I
Yeah,
had to do something like that on my show one night. It wasn't on this show. It was when I first started out um, with Chris on Freedom Fighters for America, and he had control, and I was like the people in the chat room. I didn't have control, but I was the moderator, and they knew that only Chris could end the call. Well, Chris hung up and the call was still going, and people were getting way out of hand with their language and all
yeah,
this. And I said, "This
yeah,
call's over." And they said, "Yeah, well, how are you going to end it?" And I said, "I'm going to end it." And they said, "Yeah, well, you don't have control of the window." And I said, "Oh, I'll end it, believe me." You know what I did?
There's questions. What'd you do?
I turned my jukebox on and played about 100 songs and laid the phone down by it.
Inagata Davida, man. The JPEGs
Yeah.
they're coming through, but I can't visually see them. I'd have to download to open them, and I of course can't do that now. The DY said, "Hey Sam, are there any planets in the second solar system that hasn't gotten close to us yet?" No, I think we've done a close spatial pass of everybody at least twice to four times, and we're right now swimming in them again. Nibiru was coming inbound again because we're doing a bank turn underneath this whole ball. I don't know exactly how it works because it's just beyond me that this is the orbit. But no, everybody's gone past us several times, and we're literally on our fourth rotation in the last 8 years, and so it's it's not a 24-hour-a-day rotation. It's more like an 18-hour rotation, and they do close passes underneath us, and then a close pass beside us, and then a close pass over the top of our head, and then we move on in our seasonal orbitation, and then the whole ball game changes from time to time where our view is changing from underneath them. And I believe them coming close to us has a wake eddy push where we're doing a bunch of tipping, because I had reports that the moon was in a really screwy place the other night again. And, like we're just all of a sudden being knocked like a pool ball out of the way. Not that bad, not kinetic energy, more like an electrical shove to the side, which is why the
Now,
moon.
did you hear about all the storms that were supposed to be happening in Texas?
Oh yeah, well I've been looking at the radar even right before the show. I was watching this. It's a moisture train directly from the tropical center of the Earth and the troposphere and all of that. And, well, not troposphere, excuse me, the tropical region, and where most of the moisture is in our mid hemisphere, and it's flowing up over the top of Mexico, which it normally never ever did. And I've watched the radar for many, many years, and the moisture never usually went over the Mexican desert. And boy, I bet you they're going to have a beautiful bloom come January, February this year, because I bet they're getting a ton of rain. And going over to Texas all the way, and I looked, and there's a rotational storm right now over lower eastern Canada, and then there's this big rotational storm off the Atlantic that's been out there that Thor's been talking about for months on Thor News. And he's a kick. I love watching him if he ever gets a chance to hear us. I just pegged him once.
Okay, you have a
And
question, Sam?
uh-huh.
They want to know what you think the winter predictions are for Montana.
Well,
This
everybody's
person is in
saying,
the Yellowstone area.
right, I'm reading it. Everybody's saying that we're going to have a wetter than normal and a milder winter, which would be great by me. I mean, I'd like to not freeze my backside off for once. We've seen a disrupted pattern for the last 4 years, where our severe, harsh, normal January, February, the sub-zeros, have been hitting in December. And maybe this year we might even just bypass that, because currently, right now as we speak, Canada is having a severe storm, a snowstorm, and it went through here today like I've never seen it. I've never seen it rain and blow like it did here today over the top of us. And then I looked at the radar, and I discussed this earlier. It had a really familiar shape that I'm going to investigate further prior to saying something out of conjecture and hype. But, where we've got some passing situations, what a bad word, passing situation where these close passes are seriously affecting our weather. And I'm sure there's, some sort of electrical thread pulls and attachments. And I'm amazed with this coronal hole that we just had yesterday and today, that we didn't get anything larger than a 6-pointer, but we had a whole bunch of South American, Peru side, on western side quakes again. So I anticipate we're going to see a lot more, and of course we know that the USGS has just upgraded all 12 volcanoes, or 18 or so volcanoes here in the United States, as being at a higher risk. And then we had a week or two ago, we had those 6.8ers off the coast of Oregon, and subsequent outgoing tidal wave. It went more outward to the Pacific than, fortunately, to shore, because it didn't get anybody too bad. But it did go. The wave did go all the way up to Alaska, and Alaska's been quaking out in all the volcanoes, so we could see. And of course, those are going off pretty regular, but we never get to hear about them. Even though there's been 3 within the last couple of months that are brand new that just went off, and it doesn't hit national news. And if you don't go look this stuff up, they don't tell you, and
Are
they
you
don't
able
want
to
you to.
see the pics now, Sam?
I could click on one and
Oh, okay.
do.
So you have to click on present in
Yeah,
order to
it's
see it.
I get a JPEG heading, and then it gives me the opportunity to download it, and that would
Right,
knock.
but if you click on present, it'll show on your screen.
Let me see. Right back top, select all, view source. Nope. It only lets me download them.
Huh. Well, I'm clicking on present and they're showing up for me, but they're
Well,
showing
that's
up anyways.
you have a present. I do not.
Yeah,
I
well,
have.
but they were
I don't
showing
have
up
that.
anyways.
Hmm.
AJ's putting them up.
Okay. I'm unfortunately I need to sign in and join. I've never joined yet. That's my
Well,
silly.
what are you dragging your feet for?
I had the flu, and
Okay, I'll let you
and our
slide.
shows have been messed up. We've been goofing up back and forth. You've been sick. I've been sick. You
Well,
know.
let's stop it with the sick stuff, you guys.
Yeah. No kidding.
AJ, I know you're on the phone. I just want to tell you hello and welcome, and thank you for putting all the pics up.
Okay. I'll try that download. Oh wow. Okay. All right. I see that. I did not know that that was going to be that easy. Okay. I saw a 21 dash copy. That looks to me like. Well, yeah, okay. That's the bright object, and then I'm seeing whoever's that last, the bright object in the right-hand side, which would be Attu's moon compared to the sun on 46 JPEG, and 45 JPEG is uh, yeah, a halo of some sort. Not really a usable picture. I don't mean to be negative. I was just okay, and the other one with the green and blue skies, which is 39 JPEG, is the object cluster group underneath Uri. Okay, I guess we can go on these a little bit faster, and we'll stop going back, and I'll see anything forward. Anyway, do you have any other questions?
Nope, you're doing fine, sweetie.
Okay. Well, recently, we do not really see the planets as easily as we could. They all have a clouded effect. As when they come in, they create these base clouds. And I've got Understanding the Skies Edition 1, Samuel Hoffman. It's on YouTube. And you can also type my name into YouTube. And if you type my name into Google, you'll get a bunch of my videos also. There a whole bunch of years were lost, about 2.5, 3 years were lost, thanks to an ex-co-admin. But anyway, what's been going on is we've been seeing the backside of these things because they've come up from underneath us, and then they joined within our solar system, within the first ring and the second ring, and they started hanging out and cross-mingling into the third ring with us as we went around in one direction and they went around in the other direction and pretty much stayed the same versus distance, but yet they moved in certain manners, which I've tried to depict over the years, and it's really hard to draw a 3D image on one piece of paper, which is why my drawings have been the way they have been. It's what works so far. And we've seen the circle away from Nibiru for a period of time and away from Saru for a period of time, and then in the middle years, Saru was a very prominent member of the daytime sky, and she has this big, huge, illuminated open core ring, which we've got hundreds and hundreds of pictures of over the years. And then she started to back away, and then we ended up dealing with Uri and Attu for the last 2 years, followed by Isatum and Nepesity, the smaller planets that orbit in a little dance underneath and behind Uri and Attu, and they're pretty much the end of the spiral because they follow Nibiru in a spiral. And it's a funky spiral. I don't fully understand it, but I believe it has to do with Nibiru's blue facial tool star, having to do with a thread link and physics and all kinds of crazy stuff that I can't even begin to imagine. But that's what it's been doing. And this is, of course, through factual time-lapse observation. And then now that we've been having this little dance for the last, since 2016, 2017, 2018, close pass at certain times of the year from literally July on, we've been having these close passes and Canadian storms in 2016, and then followed in 2017. It was United States and Canadian storms, and it was crossing from California to Michigan, et cetera. Well, this year now, we're seeing it cross from Texas to New England, et cetera. And each gradual pass over the last 3 years, these close passes have affected us in different manners. And we're seeing an effect from these passes in an ion drag-off from each of our planets. As the larger planets goes by, it sort of puts its hooks into us and drags off moisture and electrical field. And when you have a transfer between two electrical bodies, the light, we've talked about the light going straight up in the skies for the last 3 years, and everybody was wondering what that is. Charged light photons will follow the easiest pathway. And when you see ions being pulled from one body to the other, that is, it's like a superhighway, and those illuminated photons go right up to the other planets, and which has helped elicit some phenomenal nighttime footage of the bottom of these passing planets. And we've got hundreds of those pictures too. So it's robbing atmosphere from us, robbing electrical energy, and I'm sure we get some back and forth and from these jolts and zaps, because the planets do not collide. When they get too close in their little proximities, they electrically repel each other, literally like, somebody sticking a stun gun up to the next guy to push him away. And that's what we've got, of course, thousands of pictures of that over the last 8 years as well. And you can tell that they're definitely the planets because they identify by color and placement and size. And when this is how we run on Skywatchers, I do a monthly drawing, and I put it out, and I put out a generic size, and it's a right or a left of the sun, and it's placed here. And if folks look at the comparative of their picture, like I've made a capture today, okay, the sun is on the right-hand side. I'm taking a picture of the left-hand side of the sun, and there's this body here, and it's about this size. Well, then I know it's the lead object of the object cluster group in comparison to Sam's drawing. And that's how it works. And I'm hoping everybody who doesn't understand that does now. And it's worked. It's been a functioning thing where a lot of people who are on top of this situation have come to understand how to identify the planets that are passing by their base clouds, their appearance, their size. Now, sometimes, because especially recently with the Saturn, who is right now currently just to the right of the sun's, and her yellow moon, the skies have been horrendously yellow because of the yellow illumination off the angle of the sun as well. And those photon of lights affect what we see. And the red skies of a Saturn. Now, a Saturn is about, you could say, like holding an orange or a grapefruit next to the right of the sun at arm's length, about that big now.
Yellow sky.
And or red.
Okay,
Well,
but is
the reason I'm
the
leading to
yellow
this
one
is,
come up like if the sun comes up, and then it looks like something else is rising underneath?
yeah,
Is
just to the
that?
right of it. Yeah.
Yes, I saw that the other day.
Yeah, and that's
When
the yellow moon of his Saturn. And it is sometimes so bright, and it's really close spatially to his Saturn. Now, it's believed that his Saturn has 3 or more moons, because we've seen evidence of it in numerous pictures, but they were so small in some of the captures that it was hard to absolutely call that it wasn't an asteroid or a blip in the photo or whatever. But we believe it has multiple moons. But the yellow moon has this ion drag tail, which is the winged planet. Saturn is the winged planet, not Nibiru. And at some point in time, somebody probably cross-named it because it is very prominent in the sky when it does its cute little thing of the ion trail around it. And it's red. And it's what puts off the iron oxide, not Nibiru, for all that cross-reference misinfo internet stuff. And over the years, we've proven all of this by numerous year after year sightings. The Saturn was close to Earth, I believe, in 2014, 2015, where she was literally the size of, a beach ball if you held it at arm's length against the horizon. It was huge, and so was Nepenthe at that time. And then they did this little switch stance, and now we've been dealing with Nepenthe for a very long time behind Attu and Attu's moon, but Isatum has been over and behind and above and to the right of the sun for literally about 2.5 years away from the group. And now, as we rotate toward Nibiru to the right-hand curve and forward, Isatum is all of a sudden coming back. And so it's kind of a cool oblong third orbitation of the whole group that has its little cool weird orbits that are, it's kind of hard to plot orbit when you're sitting on one of the bodies because you don't get an outside view to actually see what goes on. But I'd love to be in a ship somewhere and taking pictures of this. But in space, everything is black until it's illuminated through an atmosphere where the light refracts. And everybody wonders why we don't see those planets. Well, most of the time we're looking at the back dark side of them, and all we're getting is either a crescent view or a quarter illumination or a 1/2 illumination at best. And now they're passing again, which they also did last year. Uri and Attu passed Earth last year, and we've got numerous pictures of them illuminated at sunrise and them rising above the horizon. So it's this awesome planetary dance, and most people are still looking for the small little stuff. I keep having videos sent to me that says, "Oh, look, it's Planet X Nibiru," and they're showing me lead object, and everybody's calling it the second sun again, and lead object of this main lead asteroid that is split off of all the other groups because of proximity to other planets, because over the years they've changed positions because of numerous collisions and stuff, and we've watched, but we've documented, we've seen how it is, we've run pictures of it over 8 years, and people have to get on board with this as a proven fact. We're not guessing. And those guys are out there, throwing their films up daily and still guessing and butchering the hell out of the information, and it makes it all the harder for the new folks who are really trying to learn to get the basic facts, and then they're getting scared. And I have people that are scared talk to me all the time, and they're going, "Oh my God, is Yellowstone going to blow?" Well, it's highly vented. I'm not worried about Yellowstone. I'm worried about the ones that are still capped, the ones that haven't blown ever yet. The Seven Sisters in Washington State, and right there where all the tectonic plates are bumping together. Well, that's what happens is when the tectonic plates bump together, the lava gets pushed up and those volcanoes burp. There they go. And that's, when all this movement, and this is, of course, why the USGS raised the warning level, because they know those tectonic plates are bumped, because they know that their meters are turned way down compared to the rest of the world. Because if you look at the rest of the world, there's 5s and 6s going off everywhere, except the United States, where we're having 2s and 3s. Sorry, they've got those meters turned down so bad you wouldn't believe. We've had bell ringing from the Earth all last week, and people don't get these notices. No, and they're not marked on the USGS maps for the other earthquake sites in the United States, and it's a big deceptive game. Stuff's happening, and we're not being told.
Do you think they're doing that, Samuel, to keep people uninformed, and then when the big, earthquake
I
does?
can't say it's malice. When I was briefly with the powers that be and listened to what they talked and their excuses as to why this information should not go to the public at the time I knew it, and why I was forced into a 30-year non-disclosure agreement. They have a state of mind that says to them that they're smarter than everybody else, and in some cases they are. In a lot of cases they're just greedy, and they want to keep their job and pay their kids' way to college. But they also are of the belief pattern that that they're going to ensue panic, and so they're doing a public service by not announcing this because now we also do have to take into account that there are a whole bunch of people that will lose it when they get this information. And for those people who do out there, I'm sorry.
Telling their people, and Russia's telling their people.
Yeah, Russia told their people. The people in Sweden know it. People in Holland know. We got the best Nibiru. Did you get to see that new Nibiru actual planetary picture we got about 2 weeks ago?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I'll have to send you a copy. I'll send you a copy to your page, to your Facebook page. Yeah. It matches all my other close-up views of Nibiru. We have a fifth confirming facial picture of Nibiru, and that was apparently smuggled out of Russia through a good friend of mine, and he posted it, and I don't think he directly posted it at me, but I fortunately and unfortunately snagged a copy without permission. But when I do take and record important pictures, they do become the property of Montana Skywatchers. I do not sell them, So I'm not making any money off of them, but I do add them to our files, and once it becomes part of our files, it becomes part of the site history and public information as far as I'm concerned. Anyway.
Wouldn't logic wouldn't it be logical, the fact that Russia knows and their people know and
Mhm.
they aren't having mass panic, so what's the big excuse for the United States? I still don't get it.
Well, the way our system works is we have the right to stand here and have this discussion freely without our door being kicked in. And a lot of that freedom also includes the freedom to be an idiot. And I apologize for that, but we have a society, and I was talking to a very close friend of mine recently, and I don't want to get political, but I'm going to use it as an example here. This person loves Trump. And I pride myself as being a very good farseer and a very good reader of people's inner souls. And I know a good portion of you out there have had plenty of examples of what I can and cannot do. And what I get off of this man is very, very scary. And I have tried for a great deal of time to give him the presidency and respect him. But with that said, watching this person believe in the things that he believes, and then he's quoting these certain news bite sound quotes to me for the reasons that he is believing and following these other people and these other politicians beyond Trump, Republicans, etc., and some Democrats. And his reasoning was stuff that I'd seen on top-level media, but not in-depth truth. It was all this hype political stuff that's going on, these attack ads, and how low these guys have sunk over the last 5 elections, where all of a sudden now we can just blatantly lie. And I'm really fearful of where we've become in our society if we allow this. And I asked him, I said, well, why haven't you researched this better? And he says to me, well, I don't have time. And my continued argument with him was, well, if you're going to make these statements, don't you think you should have the information on your own to be able to actually stand here and tell me these things? And this is also part of why I wanted to talk about the beginning of the topic, because these planets have been here, and people have to really get on top of it. If you have a question in something, for God's sakes, go look it up, and do not believe the first story you read. Those people that are listening to Steve Olson, oops, I said his name, and the people that are listening to Jeff and Scott out there, and they're making money hand over fist on membership fees and selling all kinds of crap, and these people haven't got a clue. It's horrible. And then I hear the religious people go off, and I hear all the other people, and I understand they're trying really hard, and they're honest people trying to share information that they've learned. But my God, you guys out there, please, if you're going to be a person who shares the news, and you're going to be a professional tech level, well then, if that's kind of like a newspaper, and with newspapers they have a person called an editor. And that is the person that if he has a question about a story that he dare not run because he doesn't want the paper that he works for to be sued or impeached in credibility, then he goes and investigates it and has another person go in and check sources. And people, if you're out there, you've got to check sources and do not believe, so-and-so and Fox and this and that without going to ABC or NBC or Google or something and getting, both sides of the story. And then before you know it, all the truth is going to fit into place, and it's going to be a nice little lovely Christmas present in front of you. And then it won't be a confusing nightmare or mass. When you look up this stuff, your fear will go away and your intellect will rise. You've got to gain the facts. And it's not, easy button. You can't just push the easy button and say, well, I listened to so-and-so and he says this, and
Yeah.
then I've been fighting that sun simulator crap for 5 years now, all because
Well,
two guys
there's
talk.
been a lot of people that have been out there on coast to coast, and I'm not going to name a lot of other shows that had Planet X Nubaru shows, but these people were people that were connected to the government, made it public that they were, and they put dates out there, and the dates
Yeah,
have come on.
Well,
Now,
yeah, well, see, this is why
my
I don't
opinion
give dates,
is that,
because when you're handing out dates, you're setting yourself up for credibility issues, and this is why I
it,
post current
well, the
information.
thing is, I think this is what I think. I think that the dates were put out there to make everybody go, oh, it's going to happen now. It's going to happen now. You know, like for instance, last October it was supposed to happen according to
Well, it
one
is
certain
happening.
person. Well,
Last
no, no, I
October,
mean complete pole shift. You
well,
know,
last
it's
October we
supposed to
were
be the
wobbling
complete
like
pole
crazy.
shift was going to happen. And
The polls are dipping into the mid regions now in the middle of the
I know
United
they
States a
are, but
few
I'm
weeks
talking like
ago.
mammoth pole shift. You know,
Well,
where
it's a series of smaller events that are occurring. And now the cycle of the Nibiru group is not going to be one instant fell swoop. It's going to be numerous repeated. I mean, we don't even know for how long they're going to be here. So far it's been 8 years, and they're just now starting to do a major, really close pass to us where we're going back to Nibiru again. And
right.
Nibiru has been by twice out of the other ones being here 4 and 5 times. So it's the
But
least
my
been
point,
around.
Samuel, is these people were when you're talking about the disinformation. We're on the disinformation subject a minute. When we're
Okay?
talking about the disinformation, my point is these people got out there, like let's say Ed Dames when he was on Coast to Coast. Oh, well, I'm going to quit doing shows because it's going to be over this year and I want to spend it with my family. And then it
Right.
didn't happen.
Well,
See,
I
it
know
was
Ed Dames,
over this year. So what does that
and
do? The
because
person
he's
that's,
running off the hype as well, and he's getting paid, and he's getting paid to do
well, yeah,
shows
but
because
still, it makes the people that are new to this think, oh, well, this is all a bunch of bunk. And then when
right,
something really does happen, everybody's going to be caught off guard because they kept listening to the naysayers. It's like
right,
little
and
Chicken Little, you know, the sky is
oh,
falling.
absolutely. I totally agree. And this is what I'm saying. You cannot feed into the negative. You can't feed into the hype. You've got to go research this for yourself. And this is why I ask everybody to join our site, and come in with an open mind, and not these people that come in as new members and start posting the hell out of their disinformation because they think they know what they're talking about. And I've really tried to help everyone that was honestly open. But I get people that just fly in, bomb the heck out of the site, and then fly out and don't even read. And if you're going to join the site, read. If you're not, if you're here to post your material, I don't need you. I need your reports, not your internet hooey. And I hate to say that, but I'm hoping some new people that are interested will come actually and do a member report of your picture over your house, and we'll even hand teach you on how to do it and how to capture and the base clouds and everything. And people really need to spread this information, and I understand it's highly embarrassing to be out in public and stand and talk about planets that nobody has an idea what the hell you're talking about. And yes, they're going to chalk you up as a maniac and a lunatic because I've been there for 8, 10, 15, 20 years now. And of course I didn't really talk about publicly until my non-disclosure agreement was over because I didn't dare. But I knew a lot of other stuff, and I hinted at stuff to people, and they look at you like you're batshit crazy. And I apologize for the swearing, but I mean that's what it is. It's that
Oh,
prominent
what
where.
about the military, though, Samuel? Are they moving inland? Are they preparing in any way? Or are they
Well,
just going to
we could be. This
with
could
us?
be a really good excuse to stand and kick out the military in the southern regions to stop us from leaving. I
Ah,
mean, there's always you get. This is what I do best. Is I always look at both sides of the story. I do comparatives, and if you think what if we're going to have a really freaky weird 2012 movie winter vortex scenario. There's going to be one forming next week over the Great Lakes. Let's see what happens then. We've got some jet stream vortexes that are just the weather's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And we're at one of the most extreme years we've had in the last 5 years. And I try to warn people, and I talk about the object cluster group coming very close to Earth, and it's almost like it's like a nebula on its own, but it's actually, I believe, a free radical electron group of asteroids that discharge, and they're massive. I mean, they're half the size of the Earth, or if not bigger. I don't even know. I mean, I'd have to be alongside to measure one, but the sightings we've had over the last 8 years, and we first started watching the object cluster group from a little blip in the upper left-hand corner that kept showing up in all our pictures, and it was this tiny little dot that was multicolored, and it was oval shaped for years, and then it got bigger, and bigger and bigger. And then around 2013, all of a sudden, it was right up in our faces. And we had a couple of close Earth passes, and I saw it today, and it looks like what everybody's calling the dragon, or, and then, of course, we haven't even tonight talked about the Texas Cube, because it's back in full power again right in front of Attu's moon and mucking up the sky so that we can't see Attu's moon as easy. And I haven't read the page in a while. No, the Earth has not stopped rotating. We're going to continue on our process as normal because we are attached to our sun, and our sun is our electrical attachment, like a ring, like we're all on the same hula hoop, sort of. And they are on another one, even though they're attached to their suns, but they're in a separate opposite rotation. And there's one I think the government is going to tell us about, but this and use it. They won't take us underground. They're going to leave everybody up here while they go and hide and live on all the stuff they've stowed away. Because I've been in one. I partially helped design some of the living quarters, and I shouldn't even talk about that. But my non-disclosure is over, and I didn't say much right there. I've been in one on the East Coast, and the far East Coast, in the dead center. And those of you who know me know where I was for a brief period of time, against my will. And then they brought me back here to Montana in handcuffs and called me a whole bunch of mean, nasty names, and all because they didn't understand a thing about what I was talking about still to this day. And science is just now catching up to what I wrote in 1978. And they still don't have any idea of the size of what I was talking about, because I barely talk about the other bodies, because there is more to this binary solar system than just the 16, 17, 18 planets plus asteroids. There's a lot more. And I don't go into that because, I mean, this is a chemistry equation in space. And all of these plus charge, positive charge planets and the negative charge moons and bodies and asteroids and everything all make up a set made up compound, from elements to a compound. And we're seeing the effects by the object cluster group, which is electrical, which could be a free radical break-off of a radioactive decay of the overall compound, et cetera, in chemistry terms. But anyway, these planets are quite real, and we've proven it for hundreds of thousands of pictures. And what we were talking about earlier, I'm kind of losing my track here, but what we were talking about earlier it's been documented, and people have to get on board with the facts. And
I got a question, because you talk about a lot of it's electrical, and I'm sure the electrical affects our weather and everything. But in the last few months, there's been quite a few planes that have gone up and down. Like the last one that just crashed, it went up 5,000 feet, down to 3,000, up to 5,000, and then came down and crashed.
Oh yeah, sure. It's our upper jets.
The planets are affecting their instruments.
Well, you should know. You should see what our jet stream is doing right now. Our upper jet stream, and 800, 1,000, 2,000 feet up above us, they've got 300 and 400 mile an hour winds. And over the southern pole right now, our southern weather pole is putting off an illuminating, what you would call, the northern lights, but these are southern lights, just like the incoming planets. Like Nepenthe has a glowing bottom all the time. The yellow moon ionizes the face of Saturn. Uri's rings can be seen at times. Currently, Attu's moon is illuminating, and then you're seeing a gaseous, cold ion, bleed off of all these cold gases coming from the underneath of Attu. And so there's all these chemistry equation effects going on. And people have to understand that this is an existent solid compound. It's not going to degrade. It's going to be part of each other. And we come close and we push each other away and do all sorts of stuff. But what I was speaking about earlier was, if we look back through history, you can see the weather effects. You can see the geologic disruptions. You can see, but at the end of the Mycenaean period and the beginning of the Bronze Age, if you look back at technology and lore and mythos and refound artifacts and what they're showing of the gods and the lost languages and all of this, that all falls right back at 1700 BC. And then the weather extremely changed about 800 BC on the planet again, and we went to a mini ice age. where it got really cold really fast for a short period of time, and then slowly, progressively got warmer to the point of where we ended up with the Industrial Revolution, and then our ocean levels have risen 5 feet in the last 200 years. And so we're seeing, climatary changes on our planet that are regularly happening. And if you go far enough back in the geological, like bog records or mud records or Caribbean coral records where they do these boreholes, that go back thousands of years, you can even see the passing of the Nibiru system in iron oxide deposit in the Caribbean coral samples. And there is a difference between that which comes off of the African coast in dust storms versus the iron oxide that they can't identify. And of course, if they knew, like many other people, if they knew about the Nibiru system, it would be perfect fit, and they'd go, aha, and they'd have their answers. You just have to go far back enough geologically to understand that this is cyclic, and it always happens, and we're going to be reducing the number of people on the planet because we're going to geologically break up, and everything we know is going to change, and people are getting sick, and the fish are getting sick, and we're getting the hell bombed out of us by the Fukushima crap and all this other stuff all at the same time. So,
Yeah.
we're and
And
if you
people
live in,
are getting sick from the fish dying and the smell
yeah,
and
and
the
if you live from Texas to Florida to Maine, or in Canada for the next year, you're going to really experience some unusual, freakishly wet, stormy, nasty, horrendous weather because of what's going on. I believe we're tipped, and our centrifugal main weather pattern is trying to take over from the one that's existing currently, and that might be that flow of angled jet stream from the South Caribbean off the side of the Pacific of Baja and all of that, and Mexico, and heads straight up to the north east, and that could actually be the plane, or the horizontal plane. I don't know. I mean, I don't, because it's constantly moving, and I stop checking the meters regularly, and I'm always getting pictures from people showing me their compasses are off. So, we know the Earth is wobbling like crazy. We know that magnetic north and the North Pole itself is in this been oval wobble out for, 8-9 years. And during that
just
wobble,
have a major earthquake in Greece.
yeah, oh yeah, we had a huge one, and it's a great topic. It has been in a cluster of quakes. I mean, phenomenally large ones, 5s and 6s for like a week now. And if you go all the way up that same fault line and go to Venice, Italy, have you seen the footage on them? They
Yes,
were
I
in the
have.
worst flood they've ever had. They got
Yes.
5-6 feet of water in the streets when they've already gone up a level over the last 150 years because of the 5-foot water rise. And they lost
And
the
it seems
first floors, and
like
now
it's
they're
all
losing the
going in
second.
like a direct pattern. I've been noticing that there's a pattern to it, and it's like,
Oh,
follow it
I'd bet
around the
money that
planet.
Greece sank. I would bet you money that Greece sank, and it ran all the way up to the northeast cove of Italy there, and dropped Venice along with it a couple of feet. And this might be permanent for them. I don't know, but I know that they got that 5-foot change in that same time period as that 7-point quake.
Well, and I
It's
think a
point
lot of
0.8.
people don't understand that when you get massive flooding like that, if it's on a fault line, that puts weight on the planet, and it helps to pull to it.
Yeah, well, not
So,
only that, it also suppresses the magma fields underneath it, because these
mhm.
plates are floating on top of magma fields or magma pockets. And anytime you have two plates that crunch together within 150, 200 miles, you have an upwelling of volcanic material to the nearest breach zones, and then you have an earth or a volcano blowing off. So you could and then look at what the volcanoes in Italy, and so I guarantee you their activity is going to go way up after this as well. And this was also
I
what
haven't
happened.
been following the crack in us in South America, but isn't a big chunk of that continent like making its own
Yeah, it's
continent?
moving along with Madagascar. Well, the North American continent, or excuse me, the African continent has overall the western side of Africa has sank downward some 75 kilometers in the last 5 years, is what they're saying. That's the rumor. I've seen more than one source, but I haven't completely confirmed it yet. But anyway, that's the rumor. And this Madagascar nearby side of the escarpment of Africa that is moving along with Madagascar and separating from the overall western part of the continent matches what the movement has been also denoting. So I'm inclined to believe that it's more factual. Now the whole region is moving, and when these planets pass, who's not to say that they aren't grabbing hold of a continent with that thread attachment, that magnetic pole, and moving continents individually? Because we've had signs of tectonic release from. We know that the core and the magma are hotter than they used to be. We know that the planet is heating up. We know that we've got microwave effect going on within our magnetosphere, because we know that our planetary magnetosphere is acting excruciatingly crazy. And so we're heating up inside. All the other planets are heating up. Everything else, all the other normal planets in our solar system are tipped. Oh, and by the way, Saturn has now been discovered to have a second hexagonal ring over the North Pole of her. And do we see pictures of that? No. And yet, all this information's out there, but we're not getting privy to it because they don't want us to understand that there's a second larger magnet on the playing field, and all the normal planets are tipped, and they have ever since 2012, which is other proof that yes, was a second sun that did arrive, and their proximity to each other still, and I haven't seen any sign of them separating yet. So, how long is this going to be? I don't know. I know that Hercubus has moved, and I got a great picture today of our sun, the second sun, Hercubus. The lead object dead front and center of the sun, and then just to the right of it was Isatom's yellow moon with this big red side of Isatom behind all in one pic, and I'm just sitting there drooling over it. It's like, peanut butter and jelly on good bread.
Wow.
Anyway.
So, are you familiar with the fact that Japan is cracking into also?
Oh yeah, I watch the geology from everybody's breaking up. There's a question I've heard that the Vatican has relocated everything to South America. It is believed that the northern tip of South America and the bottom of Mexico, right up there at the tail, the Hopi would refer to it as the turtle's tail. That is going to be the new region that will be tolerably livable. They believe that's going to be the new where the United States is or was, because we're not geologically located where we were 10 years ago. We have changed placements. They found a Peking duck in Central Park in New York City this week.
Really?
A duck from Asia, and they do not know how it got there. It's not
so they're
tagged or.
Bearings.
Well, that's completely the other side of the planet. Thousands and thousands of miles from where it should be, but it's in Central Park of all places, and that hit the national news yesterday. So, and the pelicans have been misflying for years. They've been going to the wrong places, and if you guys watch where the monarch butterflies go this year versus last year, that'd be evidence of pole shift and change. But then our magnetosphere and our magnetic poles keep changing every day. So, we wobble one way and then we wobble another. That's where away week comes, when we're in a deep wobble and we're not looking at the planets anymore. We're looking up in the air. And everybody says, hey, how come the Big Dipper or the Small Dipper is not where it's supposed to be? Well, because Earth has tipped. Or how come the moon paw print is at 4 o'clock instead of 1 p.m. on the dial? And I go, because Earth is tipped. And then they said, and then within 3 hours or so it changed back. And I said, yeah, because the wobble changed. And so our out view is really hard because we're on this ball and it keeps rocking and rolling back and forth. But there's plenty of evidence proving that this is all occurring. And people just have to get on board with the facts and stop. I've heard some of the craziest things. Like I just sit here and go, why have I bothered if no one is listening? And I'm sure that a bunch of people are, but, of course, I've only had 510,000 likes in the last couple of, whatevers. But I sure wish I had a bigger reach.
On Facebook. And, most people, they listen to the CNN or CBS or, and they aren't saying anything about it. And when someone like you or me comes up and starts telling them about the planet, they look at us like we're a different planet.
Yeah, have you taken your medication today, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't take any medication, thank you very much. I do not require lithium. I'm not schizophrenic, thank you. I'm not
You
bipolar,
said
thank you.
foxes.
No,
Foxes.
well, I was rated by the government, for those of you who don't know, with a very high IQ, and I am smarter than Einstein, and I have a written down classified paper. It's probably sitting in the Harvard University of Classified Documents under HOFMAN. Who knows? Who knows what they write? I've never seen it, but because my paper vanished, even my teacher could not give me a copy of it, and then she slammed the door in front of my face and did not want to talk to me anymore because they were mad that I did not go to work for the government after I returned. Anyway, I have we live in an electrical universe. We do not live in a gravitational universe, and that's what my paper outlines. It's the same rule. The unification model is the same rules in subatomic chemistry as in astroatomic chemistry. The planets are like compounds on a different spectrum, different dimension. Anyway, and that's what's happening, and they're right here in our face, and we've been watching them for 8 years now, and we're talking faithfully every day. We get pictures of them. We're not guessing. We know what we're talking about, and I wish to God all the other sites would either quit, go home, or get on the same page. I mean, if you're going to be out there and you're going to be working for this, let's work together. I don't mind sharing information if you come and ask me, as long as you don't use my information and then mistag it, which I've seen for years. And I feel
Yeah.
terrible. And then you get the religious people saying, oh, Jesus has come, and then here's an example of it. And I'm going, what? That's my picture. You know, and our stuff gets used in all kinds of advertisements. I keep seeing our material, stuff that I took and put away 5 years ago, and then I'll recently posted, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's all over the place being spread with the wrong tag on it. It's like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
there's a lot of people that take little segments of each other's videos and then make one and then put it up there like it's something new that they, that you've seen this 10,000 times a long
And
time ago.
I'm still seeing old drawings that my previous co-admin from Montana Skywatcher 2, whom I finally thank God he left, and I hope he hears that. Some drawings that he used from prior early information going back over like 2015, and that stuff is still being posted, and people believe that that's the location of the planets. And I keep typing in, excuse me, but this is outdated and no longer valid information. It's pretty, it's a nice picture. He did good work drawing it, but this is completely inaccurate. And if you're going to share this information, share current information. I don't need a video from 2011. I've already got it.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody out there just keeps doing wonderful work, because they are around the world. I mean, we talked to Australia, Malaysia, South Africa, New England, London, South America, Brazil, you name it, Mexico, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, New York, you name it. I talk to those people every day. And we've got a bunch of people that are doing really phenomenal work, and you guys need to all pat yourself on the back and mail me $10. And, yeah, I said it. It's Christmas. Anyway,
Oh,
boy, I sure
try to
need it.
send more
I
than
got to buy
10.
a new computer. I have to. I need another new computer. But anyway, what were you saying? I'm sorry, I talked over you.
I said try to send more than 10 because it is Christmas.
Yeah, I've got 2 children that are continuous, or is it continuous? Yeah, anyway, God, every time I turn around, they're outgrowing their shoes. It's like those really cool boots I bought at Goodwill last year are no longer fit.
That's the bonus of being a parent. They always
Oh
outgrow.
yeah, they had a great Halloween, and we only ran into one scary clown this year. So, and I had to take them all the way up to the porch, and so they'd be okay with that. And they held on to me the whole way. It was fun. But last year was one major scary clown that jumped out at Nova, and she hadn't forgotten that. And this year it was a scary clown circus here in Lolo. And if he hears the show, he'll pat himself on the back because he scared everybody, and they loved it. Anyway, yeah, my daughter likes monster movies. Anyway, back to the planets. The smallest amount of research and watching some of my older videos and stuff will give you the background information that you need to see these planets. And all you have to do is think that they're massive. And we're not looking for the little stuff, because there's tons of asteroids flying by every day. and you just look for that big, huge, dark thing up in either one side or the other of the sun, and you can't miss these puppies. And we're actually seeing land sightings, and the smaller, tiny clouds above us during sunsets and stuff are not our atmosphere. They belong to these overhead passing planets. And people have got to get on board, because we've been doing this for 8 years, and this is part of why I wanted to start out at the beginning. And I'm sorry for tucking my phone under my mouth in case that changed the audio. Under my shoulder, I should say, or chin.
No, you're good.
We go ahead.
You're good.
Okay. Well, I just want everybody to get on board with the documented information, and then if they could start posting the correct stuff and everybody learn the names and the base clouds of these planets, they'd see them so much easier. And we're seeing Nepacity this week way overhead and very destructive. And I was talking to Lana in Arkansas, and someone else in Brazil today, and they were all talking about how it got so gray, almost like sunset night. And then everybody in the United States went through a huge storm today. Everybody had some really nasty weather and some nasty rain up here in Montana, and nasty from Texas all the way to New England. And it's only going to get worse the next couple of days. So, if you got stuff outside you want to keep, I'd put it away, because the stuff is coming, and we're going to see tornadoes and nasty weather, and this is all planetary. And these passes are happening, and I've got some phenomenal close-up shots again of Nepacity and a double ring base cloud, and its snorkel core, and it sucks up a certain amount of atmosphere and moisture off the oceans and everything else, and then when it gets full and can't hold anymore, it dumps. That's been the rain bombs. Everybody's, it's amazing. They use the terms. Even the weather picked up what they said, rain bombs, and yet they don't tell you where all of this stuff is coming from. And it's kind of a little bit funny how, like NASA puts out information. They'll give you half of what you need to know, and then they'll mask it and then tell you it's 26 light years away.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, the increase in the tornadoes, it used to be like they were always 2s or 3s, and now they're all 5s and above, and people are like, wow, we had a bad tornado, but I don't think they question why,
Yeah, and if you want to judge the Fujita scale, the Fujita scale goes from 1 to 5, of course, and it has a lot to do with the height of the tree that is left behind. They'll measure the distance from the ground to the top of the tree that's removed, and the leaves and branches up top. That's a Fujita F scale 1. And where if the branches are all gone and you've got the hulk on the top of the tree only, that's a scale 2. And if half the tree is missing, has been spun and twisted off, that's an F3. And if the stump is about 4 to 5 feet tall and twisted off, that's an F5. And if it's anything bigger than that, like a passing planet, it'll be ripped off to the ground or removed out of the ground. And if it's a live tree and removed out of the ground, it's higher winds than they're talking about. Anything above 75 miles an hour is considered a hurricane. So, and they're avoiding this information. They'll tell you 55, 65, and maybe even higher winds, because they don't want to tell you that we're having on-land hurricanes for the first time in history. And the hurricanes that are, lows that are forming over land, not over water, which has been happening for about 3 years now. They're telling you the news, but they're not telling you the facts.
Right.
And
right.
And if people put these, and if you learn these facts, like I post Suspicious Observer on a daily basis, as many times as I remember to do so. And over time, if you just watch these things, and a lot of people go, well, what does this guy mean by what he's saying? If you watch this long enough and you tell yourself that you can learn this stuff, and you don't tell yourself, well, this is beyond me, and I've had numerous people shut down on me in my public speeches and in local talks and stuff where they say, that's beyond my education level, and then they shut down on you. Don't let that happen to you. Once you get to the point where you have a question of something, if it's intriguing, then and you have a passion for it, search out the information and don't quit. And that's why. See, I can't. If I'm into something, I cannot let it go. It will eat away at me, and I will not sleep until I find out the information I have to learn. And that's my passion is learning. And I've learned more out of school than I ever did in school in the last 15, 20 years because I've had alien contact, and I've had government contact and factional contact from multiple factions all interested in me for a reason. So I had to get myself educated as to figure out why. And I have come to understand what this is all about, and memory has returned in certain ways and not in others. But I can factually tell you that I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm talking about, and I believe, and I'm very proud of what I've accomplished. And a lot of people are on my corner, and I thank them for it, because I don't think I'd be here without them, and you included. And
Oh, thank you.
and getting the word out that this is not random guessing, and we are sticking to scientific method. And only because when I first started this, every picture was 2 weeks old, and I'd be out searching through all sorts of picture files, and then I'd have to check the date, and then, oh no, this in what part of the world? Oh God, they didn't say where this picture was taken. And that's what a lot of new people say, is where was this picture taken? In a lot of cases, it doesn't matter anymore, because it's a worldwide sighting. They're so close and so big. Everybody sees these, from Scandinavia to New York to to Florida to Greenland, and when we see it, we see it. And when you have the matching cloud patterns, and that was what we first started out doing, was like, how can this anomaly that looks like a very round planet that yet has this weird cloud on the bottom part be in Germany and in New York City at the same time, or in California at the same time? And that's how we started, we started comparing pictures on Montana Skywatchers 1. And then I was working on all kinds of other sites. I used to be on about 35 other sites. And I finally had to walk away from them because they were letting so many members come in, and I got trolled, and I'm sure you've seen some of it. I got trolled so bad that there's other sites still to this day that are devoted to strictly downing me and what I post now. And I'm sure they're all having. Yeah, and we're all getting trolled. And then there's, the death threats, and I've got death threats in the mail and all sorts of stuff. I mean, and then I've had some real left-wing people that I thought were friends completely to spin into an unknown zone that I can't even describe what happened to them. And they've gotten abusive, and I just sit there and I wonder why. I tried my best to send them information, and half the time, 90% of the time, they didn't even look at it. So they went off in their own little world. So when you do talk to some people about this, you're going to lose some people. You're going to turn in some into Darth Vader, and some of them are going to be half awake, and some people will barely listen. And then there's some that will actually get it, and then they'll go, "Cool, dude, thank you," and then off they go. And you have to learn to search out the true information and not jump into the hype, because the hype is just so it's addictive, and these people are running, oh, I got to find the next thing that's going to terrorize me personally. And I've seen a lot of religious science junkies, where the religious people start into some science and they get grabbed into something, and then they get completely lost in that, and they start talking about Egyptian magic or pyramids or this or that, or the ley lines or crystal magic, and then they lose themselves in their original quest. And great that they're learning whatever turns them on and they have a passion for. But if you're going to understand what's going on in the skies, Understanding the Skies Samuel Hoffman series, most of which was lost on YouTube. The point with it is this information is there. And another really good series is Symbols of an Alien Sky, David Talbot, which is also Thunderbolt's project. They're just on the cusp of understanding, and if they were to cross-reference the Nibiru planets into their summations, I'm sure they'd have a lot more answers that science is reaching for. And yet they're constricted by their paycheck and the scientific method that they believe, like Marcus of Queensberry rules and all this other stuff. And that's stopping them because they haven't proven or stepped across that line, where I was allowed to, because I actually had a visual sighting where I could say, yes, by God, I saw it, so therefore, I'm telling you that this is my scientific sighting, and I was able to come on to Montana Skywatcher 1 and 2 and start doing this, where it's a scientific report, and it's real. They are real, and boy, is it raining outside.
All right, you got a question? Someone wants to know when you're going to upload another video on YouTube.
I am really going to set myself down and make a new one. I do the paper cutout videos. I haven't been able to reconnect with my paid the Show More site and all this, where I've got to pay for it. I haven't been able to get them to reassign me, even though I paid for it. And I sent them a check, and I've been arguing with them, and they haven't got back to me in about 3 weeks. But I can do a fast one on posting to Facebook now, and then I'll have to send it out to London to have it posted on YouTube, because I'm still blocked on YouTube from posting. I can look up all I want, I just can't post. I'm blocked all over the place. My Skype even went down, and
Yeah,
I've got one
I think
encrypted.
you're blocking us all, Samuel, because I
Yeah,
did a show last week with Robert Evans, and Saturday morning I got up and I listened to the first 5 minutes. It was fine. And now you click on that show and it's not there. It just says presenting or something, trying to
right.
present it, but it never ever comes up.
Processing, yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
never comes up.
I've had it where I've had the site, and I've signed up with different emails and everything else, and I went through a whole bunch of, and when other people did it for me and then gave me the code, it worked. And when I sign up for my IP, it'll work for 2 days, and then all of a sudden, boom, I can't open it again anymore. I can't even open my email now for, God, 6 years. It just cycles and cycles and cycles and cycles, and I've got a 2.5 teragig computer sitting in front of me, and that's not supposed to happen, period. And it just cycles and won't open, and that's what happened to my Skype. I've got one encrypted site that still works, and that's because somebody helped me sign it up, and I mean, why it's still working, I don't know, but it's been great. And granted, Facebook is also changing their algorithms, and my stuff is not being shared with everybody, and they're constantly telling me that they have to look up Montana Skywatcher 1 and 2 because they can't get the link for it. So, friend of a friend of a friend is how it's working currently, and that's how I get to YouTube. Is somebody sent me a video a long time ago, and I've saved it, and I link on it every time, rather than trying to key in from Google or from Bing or whatever, because then
Well,
I
just
can't
like
get
what's
in.
happening to Alex tonight, he can't get into the window to speak,
Hmm.
and he's my co-host.
Right,
Uh,
right.
Last week, Robert Evans couldn't dial in on the phone. I had to
Well, and then
three-way
their
him
IP is
through my
being
phone.
flagged, and then they're being stalled from acquisition because they're being watched. And this is why I have to also be careful what I say, and I try not to go to classified across that border. And I know a bunch more stuff than I talk about, but I try to not discuss some serious spooky stuff, and I try to stay on scientific method and not into conjecture and hype or fear mongering or anything like that, because eventually, now granted, people love it and they become junkies for all this hype and stuff, and I myself have fallen into it, and I occasionally make mistakes too, but the point with it is you have to be calm and fit it together. And this is so overwhelmingly proven for so long now that people just need to acquiesce and just say, okay, this is it, and this is what's happening. It's real. They're not far away. They're right on top of us. We're swimming in them. And I'm sure you've seen evidence of my drawing comparison in what you see in your skies, right? I heard a
I'm
clunk.
sorry, my dog's getting a little
Uh,
reckless here, you
well,
guys.
I was asking you that, for confirmation that you have seen that my drawings are accurate by what is in the skies.
Oh yeah, I've kind of like gone out and tried to guide by it a little.
Well, if you
I've been
use
kind of real busy here, but
Okay, but if you use it, the Montana Skywatcher and stuff in the sites, and you see 5 different people's pictures, and they all match within the same day, and then you
mhm.
compare that to the drawings, and it matches within a few degrees of angle, because each person in a different country has a different angle point of view, slightly varied from my drawings, from what I see up here in Montana, and they prove time after time after time to be accurate, and that's just what I'm chuckling about still to this day. Otherwise, I wouldn't do this. If I didn't know what the heck I was talking about, I'd have quit long time ago. I mean,
Well,
it's a pain in the butt.
we mentioned the cube a little earlier, and I know I have a couple of people out here that haven't heard about any of this. So why don't you explain about what the cube is and what's going on with that?
Well, I believe the cube is Quetzalcoatl, or the Firebird. If you look at the Aztec drawings or the symbolism of the square head of the phoenix, and you look at the beak matches the star pattern of the of the object cluster group, or the frontal view of the object cluster group. And then if you look at the Phoenix symbol, there's a big circle over its head, and that looks just like Attu in size of placement at the time of arrival, that we've continued to see it. And there's multiple captures of it next to the sun again, and we've seen it repeatedly in our atmosphere ever since arrival over Texas, which is why it's called the Texas Cube. Now, it arrived over the Texas Collider, which is, in my opinion, and here I'm stepping on something I shouldn't talk about. It's the Collider sends a seventh marker to another solar system where, if you know anything about the Stargate system, you need the seventh marker to have a place of landing. And that's what I think is the marker to the opening of the gate, where the gate opened in this intergalactic cube, and it's massive. We have seen it by eye, and numerous thousands of reports in the last 3 years. And it's been here for, I think, 3 to 4 years, and was small and in hiding. And we've even got pictures of it in the sun along with the Empire Orb, which has also been sighted by eye thousands of times around the world and is factual. And we've got tons of pictures of it up close and far away. And we watch what it does in the clouds, and they hang out next to the planets and obscure them, literally like space chems. But I don't want to go there and get us all flagged. But it's not a lot of chemtrails. It's a lot of space ion drag-offs that these planets are being hidden by themselves because they have atmospheres as well, and people forget that. They have reactionary atmospheric formations that occur when they get close to us and start buffering in close, and then you'll see.
And that's when we see these big cloud systems that we've never seen before, right?
Right, and the mantis clouds that are the size of New York State, way up in the sky, and you've never seen them so intensely, awesomely colored, and millions of them. That's the bottom of one of the gas giants, because their gas atmosphere is so cold, it's running into our exterior ionosphere 300, 400, 500 miles out, and then buffers into us, and then slows down, and then we get these big atmospheric interchanges between Earth and the closing planets. And I've done even drawings of what the ion drag-off tails between these planets are, because they're all electrical, and they all have different base charges. And so they're all sending out, they're pulling one from the other, and ionization from the other, and this is what's illuminating, and all the weird colored skies, and the object cluster group has literally arced an illumination off of all the planets it passes, and has these discharges all the time that are being filmed all over the world, and everybody goes, oh, what is that? Especially the Mexican folks and the Brazilian folks have been seeing it a lot, because it's at the center of the planet, and they get a better oculus view outward than we do, because they're at the center of the eyeball, so to speak, instead of the the slightly aged older eye up here in northern Montana. But anyway, and those guys are freaking out from the storms they're seeing, and these illuminations, and they don't and they're this is where superstition and Jesus is comes into play, and the faces in the sky and all that. And there's more of that too. There's a spiritual side to all of this as well that I don't necessarily want to go into. And we're talking about the cube. It could also be considered, like we said, quasi-cotal or something else. And if you look at wormwood, and wormwood could be called the object cluster group. It could be the dragon. It could be the Medusa from the Greek history. And all of these old legends and stuff are coming to match. And if you add the binary solar system on top of it, it all fits. And that's what's killer about this, including, of course, Zachariah Sitchin's clay tablets and Immanuel Velikovsky's Worlds in Collision, and the Hopi legends, and the Incan legends, and the Mayan legends. And I also believe that the folks on the Texas Cube are not of our race. And now we are made up of 12 different genetic races, and some people, and there's someone's talking about the Skull asteroid is going to pass us. Well, the Skull is being sighted constantly. It is currently riding underneath and behind, underneath Attu and Attu's moon, and behind Attu's main lead asteroid right now. And it's passing literally daily, but it's sitting in the darkness so often we don't get to see it. Now, I saw it a year ago by eye come around the corner from underneath Attu and Attu's moon directly above my head. And it was close. It was a close pass, and that skull got into the light, and I saw the two eye sockets first, and then I saw the nose, and then I saw the open mouth thing, and I just sat there and went, oh my God, it's real. And otherwise, I wouldn't believe it for a second, but we've had hundreds, and I'm not going to say thousands, but we've had hundreds of sightings of the Skull asteroid recently again. And so and then you look into some of the smaller stuff, and a lot of that looks like spirits and faces and all sorts of other really spooky stuff going on over on Uri. And Uri's currently on the left-hand side, and she's starting to elevate above us, where she's getting higher up and yet getting closer at the same time. And along her front lower area, she has a whole asteroid group as well. And when you look into it just right at the right time, as the sun illuminates into that side of the left-hand side of the sun, there are times you see pockets of stuff that'll actually scare the hell out of you. And that's where you start wondering, like, did I eat too many mushrooms back in the 70s, man? Well, but because I've seen some stuff that has really, just turned my toenails, and so, but I try not to go into that because I can't document, prove it, and it's usually one pick out of 100. But there's some stuff going on with this, and all you got to do is spend a little bit of time outside watching this and do some comparisons to the drawings and some of the true information of what people are really capturing out there. And there's a lot of people capturing some phenomenal stuff. And if you put it all together, you'll see these planets, and it is really truly the greatest show of all time. And I've been watching it ever since the beginning, late 2009, early 2010. I was out in my yard raking leaves, and I saw a close, huge body pass Earth in the northern sky, and I think it was one of the smaller planets. And I'm still to this day debating if it was Matim, which we rarely see anymore. But she went by early and close, and got a few pictures. I've never really posted them a lot. But Matim is the light blue and the smallest of all the planets, and she's like number 7 or 8. I still haven't got the count all worked out yet, because there's other bodies we don't know about, and there's and stuff, and so it's hard to say which order. But and in the movie, the one thing talks about Nibiru being planet 6, and I'm going, no, Nibiru is leading the way as far as I know. But of course, you could count Immeru, which is the massive gas giant, but the sun is between. Their standard red is between Immeru and Nibiru, and they've got their blue tool star, which is spatially attached to Nibiru planet, to keep it on that side of the sun so that they don't go behind Immeru and turn into an ice age. And that's information I was given from a long time ago. But anyway, I'm trying to share as much as I can.
The thing is, people don't. Most people, they either call it Planet X, Nibiru, or Nemesis, and that's the only thing they're thinking of. They are not realizing that this is a whole solar system that's coming into our solar system.
I would say it's the other way around. It's our sister solar system, which is the smaller one, entering theirs, because we're smaller. Well, we've got smaller gas giants, and we've got smaller main planets, where Nibiru and Saru are just huge. There's a couple of questions on here. Why don't we see Matim? Matim orbits the bottom. That's why I said I believe it to be last in the group. It orbits the bottom of the overall, and yet goes way out and around in between Nibiru and then around the back of Saru, and I think can be gone for upwards of 2 or 3 weeks to a month to 2 months, because we rarely ever see her, and then half the time it's so bright and so small that most of the time it's attributed to lens flares, and Matim is fast enough that you don't get that many pictures in a series of Matim. And then again, question, is this a moved lens flare? There were a couple of real close passes in the beginning time, but I believe that being that Sarah is so far in the background right now, currently her outreach orbit where it goes behind and back is why we don't see it very often, but it maybe one week out of 2 months or 3 months every once in a while. It's really hard to call the orbit on that because it's been so rare that I haven't really been able to plot it in my mind. And then there was another question, do you think there'll be a time when which the government and the powers won't be able to hide all of this and tell us? Well, I don't think they'll ever tell us. I don't think they'll ever give up the fact that they've been hiding all of this and sequestering shitloads of money away for them and their little spotted behinds to go hide in. And I'm really appalled by their behavior, thinking that they're all of that when they make all the money right now and they're, have permanent health care insurance and never even have to worry about this insurance issue that's, plaguing our country, or the fact that people have to have 3 jobs in order to feed their families anymore, and they're talking about these job numbers where everything's up and wonderful and wonderful. Yeah, these are all part-time service jobs where somebody works at Starbucks for 3 hours and then has to go to another job and then another job in one day just so that they can feed their damn kids. And pardon me about the damn kids part because I love kids, but anyway, just to feed their family. You know, we're being lied to across the board. We're giving half-truths from everything, and it's all about what they want so that they can keep us damn busy while they keep sequestering all the real treasured, wonderful items, including all the money, down in these underground. I mean, they're still shipping the shit in by truckloads to this day.
Yes.
And, you know, we've seen sightings of this going on year after year after year. And when I was down in one, it's like you wouldn't believe what they've got down there, and you wouldn't believe how deep it is. Oh my God!
Yeah. I
And
actually had reports of people following some of the trucks to the entrance of the underground.
oh yeah,
Uh,
I've seen dozens of those films, dozens,
yes.
and where I've
You know,
actually
I'm
sat and watched them.
not talking 1 or 2 trucks here. I'm talking like maybe 9 Walmart trucks followed by
No,
4
I'm gonna
Coca-Cola
drop a
trucks.
little nasty tidbit. If you find anywhere on a map where it says birthing center, and that for those of you who wish to go on a quest, that's about all I'll say on it. That is the entry point, and there are many. And there's tunnels between them all, and you know, you wonder why we don't have a railroad system here in the United States that's worth beans anymore, because it's all underground. And there's
Yes.
vast amounts of resources that they've been hiding. I mean, you don't make $77 trillion vanish and not get something for it. You know, and that's
Yeah.
just a couple of years what the Pentagon did, and what other else we don't even know that the other checkbook wrote, you know, and the other checkbook and the other checkbook. So, you know, and then there's vast amounts of money being wasted on buildings that they say aren't in use that are. And then there's vast amounts of money being wasted on buildings that aren't being used, and facilities being watched and guarded because there's stuff they don't want you to know about that costs millions of dollars a year. And they finally got rid of their helium reserves from the Civil War by the time the Clinton era was over. I mean, we were paying a couple of $1 million a year just to hold this reserves all the way from the Civil War. We do some crazy stuff in this government, and they call it all in the interest of us public. Meanwhile, they take every food stamp away from somebody who needs it, and you know, and then they don't get health care
Tear
and
up
everything
homeless
else.
people's tents, kick
And
them off of
crippled
where they're
children
staying.
can't go anywhere. There's no homes for these people, and they sit with the families and get very bad health. And old senior citizens can't stay with their families anymore, and they get in facilities, and then there's a do not resuscitate order automatically signed for them whether they want to or not. And it's real unfortunate what's going on. And they're talking about stealing more money from Social Security and food stamps again right after the elections. And this is what we're hearing through the wind. Well, you know, and then we're looking at the stock market. The stock market's doing a teeter, and they're starting to hint in the wind that something else is coming. And the housing market is starting to teeter, and et cetera, et cetera. And so, you know, and then they're shipping the military down to the southern border. Well, we got a lot of cooks in this kitchen. What are they going to bake? So,
No,
you know,
I think they're trying to bake up a civil war is what they're trying to
well, yeah, they're
bake.
dividing people as crazy, and anybody, and anybody within the sound of my voice, anybody that thinks that you can publicly speak to people or about people the way certain people in our public forum are doing and incite fear instead of being a guiding force as a leader of this country, and start talking about shooting people if they throw a rock at you. Oh my God, you got to be kidding me. And we let this person do this? I mean, excuse me, but the cat's out of the bag here. Something's really wrong. And if this is going to be accepted by the country that I live in, you know, I would, if they would have let me leave, and I'm not even allowed to leave. I mean, I'm on the dissident list. I can't even leave the country. The government claims to own my education and has threatened me accordingly. And if you knew the truth about what these people who are in charge and getting all the money are really thinking, we're in a sad state. And I love my country, and I'm really wondering what the hell happened and how did it get to this while I was away? Because I've been hiding for a lot of years by all the threats that I couldn't be active. I couldn't be involved. I had to go into hiding for many years because of the threats that they hold over me still. And I still have to tippy-toe. And if this is the case of where we're supposed to be free, but we're not, if you want to look up the number of banned books in the United States alone, oh my God, the list is endless. We have the most banned books in the entire world, and they're keeping information from us. And and half the people are being blocked from hearing me talk. And I started having public talks until the feds started showing up at my talks, and then I quit because I wasn't going to be carted off because I got children at home I have to take care of. So this isn't there's a lot of people that are believing in this government, and seriously, this is the last damn thing you should be doing right now. And I'm not one to say
if there is
negative.
an earthquake or a disaster, when they get out there and they go, FEMA's right on it, I don't think FEMA would be where I want to go.
They don't talk about those hundreds of thousands of bottles of water that were left on an airport tarmac that nobody ever got during the South Carolina floods, do they? Hear about that?
Mm-mm.
Resources dumped out of airplanes on runways that nobody even went to. There's all kinds of waste and all kinds of, and they're going to, of course, stand there and promote themselves and how they're doing such a wonderful job. And yet, in the reality, ask Puerto Rico how they feel. Ask Texas how they feel right now. Ask Florida how they feel right now. And this is 1 year, 2 years, and people are forgetting this slow train wreck is huge, and it's happening. And I've been watching it, and I put the patterns together, and this is how I've seen what I've seen, and why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's because I do this well, and I have far-seeing abilities, which are considered psychic abilities, and I was also partially trained in it, and I had it before I was asked to do it, because that's part of how I wrote my paper, how I understand subatomic chemistry, and how I can do what I can do, because I'm good at what I do. And I'm not trying to brag, I'm just trying to lay down a level of that, there is, competency in what I'm telling you, because I'm not doing this lightly. This has been out of my pocket at great cost and time and money involved, and less time I could be spending doing other things. But I feel it's strong enough and important enough that I have to do this. And I felt that strong back in 1980 when they forced me into the non-disclosure agreement for 30 years. And I said, why only 30 instead of 50? And they said, well, after that it won't matter. And that was as of 2010. It was up. And so that's when I started talking. And I still have to tiptoe because 2.5 months after I started talking, half my house got electrically fried out, including objects that were not plugged in. All electronics within a certain area of my home were fried. So, they gave me a real fine example of, yes, we can step into your world and, just make you go bye-bye. And I've expected for years to have my door kicked in, but I tiptoe, and I still look out the window every time a car door slams. Habitually, I can't help it. And the point with it is this is real and this is happening, and it's got to get out that there is an actual source of information, and it's the 10,000 Montana Skywatcher members that have been hard at work for everybody, and it seems like nobody's listening. And we're proven. It's proven. It's not, oh, these guys are talking about this, and this. These guys are talking about scientific proven fact. And we have seen the planets, and the planets are accurate in the sizes and the locations and the drawings, and everything has come out month after month, year after year. And for those other sites out there, you guys really need to get on board with this, because you're wasting a lot of time and promoting a lot of people that don't deserve it. And I wish you'd get, and I'm not seeking the glory or anything. I just want the information to become standard record. And that way we can move on to the next topic of solving our problems and stop fighting each other.
Samuel, do you think the underground volcano in California, I get a gut feeling that that's going to pop off.
Well,
and do you
the
think that's
lava field is not necessarily
the massive fault line to actually
the lava field is not under California. That area is Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of California, all the way down to the Salton Sea. That's where the magma field is, underneath that. And of course, that's always within, anytime you have a major tectonic plate crack, within 150 to 200 miles is where your magma region boils up from way down deep below. When those two plates are grinding into each other, the one that subducts goes down and is forced downward and melts, and then it starts fizzing like a fizzy tab, and then it starts to break up into different elements and compounds depending on the heat and cooling processes of the things that start to rise up in that area. And that's the magma field. Becomes this bubble underground that enlarges and the pressurized, and then the ground starts to lift. And then even like in the case with Italy, you'll have magma distribution out of the volcanoes, and then the magma field will lower, so your area of land will sink. That's why over the last 200, 300, 500 years, Italy has sunk in, and within the last 1,700 years, it has also sunk in because of the cycles of the passing planets and everything. But you
Well,
get subduction and raising and lowering, so that
map around that area that you just named off, New Mexico and all that, and
yeah,
Arizona, and it seems like there's always a cluster of earthquakes in that area.
right, and that's usually magma moving around under the ground. And you can see on the geologic sites, when you look at the seismic meter, you can see how the wave reacts in certain when the distribution of the pulse up and down is long and distant apart. That's wider. That's a magma movement. But when they're tightly together, that's an earthquake. So there's like whoa underground. It's a slow movement, and then it pitches. It's a wider distributed peg on the meter. And you can see P waves, which is a tremor, a movement of magma, and a humming prior to a larger earthquake building and then releasing. And that, of course, is tectonic plate pushes, and because they act and interact with each other like train cars that bump into each other when you get an action like what we had today in South America. Now you can more than likely say that there will be volcanic activity in southern Mexico, if not a major earthquake off the west coast of southern Mexico next. And then it will boost up its way to California like next week, or the next coronal hole attachment, or the next close pass of the planets. So you can say that, yes, eminent stuff is about to happen, which is why the USGS has upped their readings of the meter, saying it's warning right now, because they're also trying to warn the people that do listen and should listen that, yes, something is happening.
And
They'll put out
it's
tidbits.
interesting that they're also running drills in a lot of the schools for a tsunami to come in. And
Well, that's good.
I watched this on, yeah, it's good, but you know what? I watched this documentary on, I think it was the History Channel or the Smithsonian, I can't remember which one, but actually they were talking about having the kids in the school go to the top floor, and they said that, that's good that they're running these drills, but the wave is going to be higher than the school.
Right. And they're, of course, they're falling into they're trying to placate the people and yet not completely inform them, because if they knew, they'd move the hell away. Period.
Exactly.
And then the people, the mayor of the town would be out of his job, and then so and so, and and this is the problem. Everybody's attaching everything to money, and the moment you start viewing science through money, and oh my God, I'm going to lose my job, then you lose your objectivity as well, because then you're trying to alleviate facts in order to suppress fear factor, to suppress reaction. And the information is that within the next 50 years, you're no longer going to be able to live in parts of New York City, period. You're no longer going to live in parts of Japan or Malaysia or Indonesia, because within the next 50 years, the water's going to go up another 5 feet, for sure. And that's a lot when you live on the edge. And, if you like a wave coming through your living room on normal days, what's it going to do during tornado season? Your house is going to be gone. Now, there's ways to rebuild. You could build a better house, and they're starting to do that in certain ways, but we literally have to tear them all down and build everything out of concrete, which is what I suggest. An Adobe-style house made out of concrete with closing doors that can close off from tide and everything else, and airports and that go up 300 feet if you need it or whatever. But that's why I live in the mountains, because I'm up here at just under 4,000 feet. And anything that's going to be here, it'll be splashing off of my ankles off in the distance. But And everybody's talking to me lately about the dreams they're having, and there are a lot of people getting dreams. There's letting them know that there's something dire coming,
Yes.
and it's
You know,
here.
not
It's
to
been
mention,
here.
if you research Edgar Casey, the sleeping
And I
prophet,
have.
he would always talk about the East
Yep.
Coast was going to sink
Right.
into the ocean,
Right. There's going to be
and
an asteroid hitting the
massive land changes.
off the coast of the Atlantic. Yeah, I've read a lot of Edgar Casey repeatedly. I not just one time. I read his books and then I looked it up repeatedly over the internet. And I look at a bunch of Nostradamus too, but it's all quatrained up into mixed. And unless you translate it into French yourself, which is time consuming, and I've done some of that. And it's the same thing with Sitchin's tablets. It's you got to translate it to Greek first, and then from Greek to English. And it's the same thing with some Egyptian stuff. But anyway, um, it's hard to follow. And if you mix in the Nibiru ideas and possibilities and close passes and everything else, and we know that tectonic breakup occurs when these planets pass every 3,650 some odd years, 54, 56, 57 years. And we look back through history, and I was saying earlier, like the end of the Mycenaean period is when the Mycenaeans ended up vanishing off the whole southern region of the Greek islands and Italy and
Mhm.
that whole area there.
And like
They
Atlantis
vanished.
sinking. Doesn't anybody ever wonder why Atlantis sank?
Yeah, and and that's about the time of Atlantis. And if you go back 2 cycles, that's supposedly the time of Noah. You know, and
Uh-huh.
then if you go back 3 cycles, they're talking about the new, how the Sphinx is worn off and the pyramids are worn off, and it was supposedly at some point in time under an ocean. Well, and that's three
Yeah.
cycles ago. And if you look back through history and these these rock carvings all over the place, that's the only thing that's lasted this 3,654 years is rock. Everything else is gone. And there's been other civilizations that have been advanced as well, and people have to take that in consideration. And just with the people, the cube, the people who are owning the cube have owned this for what they say is, and this rumor is, for 300,000 years. And so
Mm.
that's 83.3 times that this has happened just for the people who are driving that cube. And they're not people like you or me. And if you look up the Mayans and the Incans and who they worshipped, there will be your answer as to who's piloting that craft. And
Mhm.
I don't like to talk about a bunch of background information because there again, I don't wish to scare the uninformed because there's multiple races out there, and we have a humanistic point of view that a lot of times it says they're bad and evil, and granted we are, and I said, I'm just looking at other questions, but we are bioworkers. We work on this planet because we were placed here to mine commodities for this other larger half of the solar system. And people need to understand that we don't really have the control, and these politics are just a bunch of side idiots, little gangs trying to vie for the last moment's worth of great authority before the shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
And I don't like to talk about that, and I don't like to think about how bad it's going to get. But from what I was told some 20 odd years ago, 25 years ago by the Pleiadian, in descriptions that I still don't talk about until after the shit's hit the fan. Um, wow, there's still a lot more coming. But if you look at the rest of the world right now, everybody's suffering. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got global migration going on all over the place. Look what's happening from the anger and the disruption, and the chaos and the greed and the robbing of the people and the stealing of their money from governments in Brazil and all this other crap. And Venezuela right now has got 90,000% increase in their economy, and
Yeah.
kids are stealing on the streets. Well, we're there. We're in
Yeah.
hell right now. It's really bad, and of course the news is not sharing this. They're
No,
sugarcoating
they
it, and
are.
by that great buffoon who's distracting everybody every day on Twitter.
Well,
Twitter.
Samuel, we're coming up on the last few minutes of the show. So before we close out here, why don't you, besides we've talked about maybe people should be more aware, but what would you advise people to do to be prepared? And after we give out that information, why don't we give out your contact information, your
Right.
web pages, and your Facebook page? and see if we can get some people to help you out also.
Well, what everybody has to do is to go back through history and look at the cycles that has happened, because history is going to basically repeat itself. And there's a lot of metaphysical people out there going, oh, well, there's going to be, the mothership is going to come down and save us. Well, that's not going to happen until there's a hell of a lot less of us. And, of course, the cycle is planned. And what's going to happen and is happening has happened numerous times before. And you need to be one of the people that is going to survive. And only through, a good, clean heart and helping others and stuff, because you cannot grow a wheat crop by yourself. You're going to have to hook up with some good people, and yet then there's the trust issue of who's going to steal from you. So you have to really look into your heart and figure out the right place to be. And if you do live at the coast, I suggest you move. You're going to have to eventually, one way or another, and ask yourself, is the money worth it? Because everybody says, well, I'll be moving someplace where I won't get a good enough job. But the question is what do you need? And what kind of life are you living, and is these expensive things really worth it? Because, we're talking our kids here and our future. Also, the best way to prepare yourself is practice a couple of days, just once, even one day, where you live in your house with no power. And it'll give you a huge amount of information as what you need and how you need to go about it. And think about the fact that it takes 2.5 gallons of water to flush your toilet. And are you living in the proper elevation? Are you living in amongst a bunch of people that are all going to be going to the same store that you're going to want to go to? And in the day one or day two of any major panic situation, there's not going to be anything for you. And do you have enough food stored away? Start a pantry. Mark your cans. When you buy the stuff, buy 2 instead of 1, and then start a little bit extra. Got extra rice and extra spaghetti noodles and dried beans and cans of this and cans of that, and make sure you don't buy dented cans because they'll rot faster on your shelf. And plan these things, like books of matches and stuff, and tents and tarps and ropes and camping supplies, and then pile them in one go place so that if you do have to bug out, you can load it quickly. I've got all my supplies in one spot in a big pile in the house. That way nobody steals it out of my shed, etc. And it all stays dry at a constant temperature, and you have to watch what your storing temperature is, and you have to have it in a cool, dry place, etc. But plan ahead a little bit. And, if the people that are around you think they're nuts, plan for them anyway and get some clothes and stuff laid out,
I like
you
that.
know.
If the people around you think you're nuts, oh, a lot of
Yeah,
people
and
around
I see a
think
lot
I'm
of families
nuts.
break up over this, and it's common sense, and it's better to have and not need than need and not have,
Yes.
and you don't want to have to go to your neighbors and steal from them, and you sure don't want them coming to steal from you, and yet at the same time we all have to work together to a certain point. Like I said, we cannot grow wheat by ourselves the year after, and then you're going to have to figure a place to live and climate change and all this other stuff, and if there's bugs and snakes and spiders, that may not be a good spot to do it in. So,
Mm,
I'm up here in Montana, and we don't have a lot of that, and I was told a lot of people are going to flock this direction afterwards. And so I've gotten in the practice of trying to think that way for the last 10 or so years, to try to be a better person, to be more understanding, to be wise enough, informed enough, and yet at the same time still suspicious enough and untrusting enough to make sure I don't get fooled. Because there's a lot of
exactly.
gnarly people out there as well, and God love them all, but wow. Some people you have to be careful of, and some people you have to hug twice. And somebody said, sorry about that, Alex couldn't get on. Carol Ann and Montana Skywatchers too. Cool, we've got some people listening. If you want to get hold of me, I'm around, you can join Montana Skywatcher 2 on Facebook, Montana Skywatcher 2 Samuel Hoffman, or you can look up my stuff. You can put me in Google and you'll get a bunch of my videos. Or you go to YouTube, Samuel Hoffman on YouTube, and you can watch the stuff and get informed, because you have to sort of watch these videos long enough to try to come to an understanding of what you're seeing and how you can see it. And then you too can film this stuff and see what's going on, and watch your weather. Don't believe what they're telling you on TV, because it's only half truths, and they're trying to distract the crap out of everything while they get away with what they're getting away with. And it's
Yeah.
proven. It's proven. They
Yeah.
can't
And,
be this.
I think mainly people should be prepared for power outage
Right.
if that's where you want to start, because even if you
Heating.
if you just start up with stocking up with batteries and high powered,
Yeah,
flashlights
and
or
God forbid if this happens, something major happens where we end up losing, power during some solar event where we no longer have power in the middle of winter. And then, holy cow, what are you going to do? I recommend the old Army wool blankets. By God, have a pile of them. you
Yeah.
know. And if you're going to buy sleeping bags, check the temperature rating. Don't buy, a 795 sleeping bag. Get something that's going to be down to minus 20. I talked to a friend of mine recently. She had no idea there were different ratings to sleeping bags. Buy proper extra shoes, because if you've not lived in any situation like we live up here in Montana where it's 40 below for a long time, so we're used to this kind of thing, and your car won't run and all this other, and if you're out of power and you're freezing your butt off, you're going to have, you're going to need plastic to cover up your windows, and a
Right.
light source where you can't burn any of those coal fire heaters because you'll die from suffocation. You have to use
Yeah.
candles and fireplaces and wood and stuff like that.
Right. And if you
And
get to that point, I mean, a two-man pop-up tent inside of your house, and your body heat in that tent will make it warmer than sitting in a whole room.
yeah, when I was a kid in Minnesota and we would run into those really big blizzards, we'd end up moving into one room in the house where the stove was, and
Yeah.
everybody would end up sleeping in that room for
Yeah.
a week at a time because it was so darn cold that you couldn't possibly even heat the rest of the house. And this is
Exactly.
these old farmhouses, and so you have to think of
That's
all
why
of these
I
things.
recommend a lot of people to get the clay pot and the tea
Yeah,
candle.
yeah, radiant heat is a collective radiant, and it
Right.
also stops from starting any fires and stuff around as well.
Exactly.
You have to
I mean, you
burn
can get
candles.
in a two-man tent with a clay pot tea heater, and
Yeah,
you can find out how to make that on YouTube. You just take the bottom
right.
of the pot and
More
put it
fires
under the
start during the Christmas
opening,
seasons
put
from
your tea
unchecked
candle
candles.
in there. Yeah, and then the
Right.
heat comes out of the hole, the top of the clay pot.
Yep.
And one of those inside a two-man tent, and you're not going to freeze to death.
Yeah,
And
I've
those tea
slept in a snow
candles,
cave
I mean,
with three candles burning, and it kept me warm enough I didn't freeze to death
yeah.
when it was in the
And
middle of a
and you
blizzard.
can buy those tea candles like in packs of 300, I think, and they're not that expensive.
Right, and you of course check the quality of your wax if you are buying candles, and don't buy the cheap ones because believe me they won't work. And have matches and all this other stuff, and check into it because it's going to be like possible permanent camping. And I hope I'm wrong. I really would love to be wrong. But and by the way, we omitted that my address. If you guys want to mail me a check, because personal checks are great. PayPal, there's a PayPal account available on Montana Skywatcher 2, put up by a really nice lady, Deb. Thank you. And I don't like asking for the money, but I definitely need another computer because this one's on its way out again. I just replaced it about 3 months ago, and I'm going through computers like wildfire. I don't know how they're throwing in viruses, but because I got paid protection and still they get in. But this one's dragging already. But maybe it's the number of pictures I've got stored. I don't know. But for me and the girls sure could use, because we're living on nothing. And that's P.O. Box 625, Lolo, that's spelled Lolo, Montana, Montana, 59847. P.O. Box 625, Lolo, Montana, 59847. And, join us on Montana Skywatcher 2 on Facebook and submit your pictures. And if I can see them and I get the opportunity, I'll answer and tell you what I see. That's how we do it. We compare.
Well, we've got a couple of messages here saying thank you, that they've learned a lot tonight.
Oh, that's John,
Nancy,
Jillian, Carol Ann, Matthew, and Kat, and those are some regular friends of mine that we all talk on PM message regularly. Hi guys, thank you for coming, and I'm glad you're enjoying the show. And I don't think I've covered anything we've not talked about, but it's really cool that you guys are here. Fantastic, and let's and Matthew's getting some phenomenal Malaysian pictures, and Jillian's getting some great pictures from South Africa, and Carol Ann throws stuff in, and Kat gets some wonderful pictures that compare very well to Matthew's. And see, we created this network of really great people that are actually capturing the planets, and we're not guessing. This is real. It's
that's
science.
great.
It is. I mean, we have proven it. We're not a bunch of crazy people sitting here going, "Oh my God, look at this." We're actually intelligent, scientific reporters, and you guys are phenomenal, and you guys are what makes it work. And I'm just the guy in the middle, in the culmination of doing this so long that I know what I'm looking at, and that's why and plus I've known that they were coming, so I was ready to receive this and share it, and that's what I'm doing.
Well, we want to thank you again, Samuel, for coming out and updating us on everything, giving out some phenomenal information. And again, we will have you come back again next month if we're still all here, knock on wood. And
Yeah, and
we
keep
will
your eye
do
out for the
another,
cube. Look for that big, huge
yes.
square thing with clouds drifting off it in the middle of the. It'll be usually lately it's on the right-hand side of the sun in front of Atu and Atu's moon, and it's been sighted again. And it's like, oh my God! Once you see that big, square, huge thing in the sky, you won't doubt any of this. And then before you know it, you'll start seeing everything else. It's really cool.
Well, we want to support you. And if anyone can send Samuel a little bit of money, $10, $15, whatever you can spare, I'm sure he'd greatly appreciate it. And, we just want to thank you again, Samuel, for coming out. I'm so glad that you're there trying to help everybody get through this. I agree with you. I think we need to band together instead of fighting against each other. Of course, I never did want to fight with anybody anyways. But
Yeah,
we
yeah.
will have you back next month, and we will post it up there. Samuel puts it out there and lets everybody know when he's coming back also. And we will update. And, you take care with your health. Send the girls my love. And I
Yeah, I
can't
promise
wait
not to
to,
burn the candle at both ends here this Christmas. Everybody's telling me to slow down, take it easy. My problem is I'm getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes I'm posting all day. And I stay
yeah.
on top of it, and I am pushing it too far. As he starts to cough from a dry throat, yeah, I got my water here and my cough drops, and I've been taking bigger naps. And my kids have been trading, watching over me for a while. They're 11 and 9, so they've been pretty good about letting me have a nap every once in a while. It's been good.
Oh, that's great. They're good girls. And
Yes, they
we
are.
want you to stay safe, Stay
Oh yeah.
safe. We back you, and we'll do our best to have you back out here again next month. I'll keep in touch, okay?
Awesome. I really want to thank you and everybody out there for listening. It's nice to be able to share and I wouldn't suggest you to those sites against me, but you should see some of the stuff they say.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know.
if it wasn't about me, it would be funny. But
I get bashed too, but you know what? I just let that roll off my back like water off the feather of a duck.
yeah, yeah. Well, they're gonna one day go, "Oh my God, he was right," or they'll never know it at all. They'll never
Yeah,
see it.
right, exactly. Okay,
So
sweetie, well, you stay safe, give the girls a hug, and we will have you out here again next month. And on that note, I'm going to say goodnight. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the show. And I have no idea who's going to be on next week, but I'll be here and I'm sure I'm going to find somebody. And you take care, Samuel.
I will. You too.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
And everybody out there, you have a safe week. Remember, Bad Baby loves you.